Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel once before. So the last beer that I had from these guys was really nice actually, it had a very local name and that one was an Imperial Stout. But today we are going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum and I have to say I'm very curious to see how this one turns out. Hopefully it's as good as the last one and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head north to Sundsvall once again, kind of on the east coast, about I think 2/3 of the way up the coast of Sweden, if memory serves me correctly. And we're going to have a look at my second beer from Brygglabbet. So this particular beer is called Kattpils. It comes in at 5.7% ABV, and I think you can guess that this one is a Pilsner beer. So yeah, very, very curious to see what this one has in store for us. This is a beer that's been sitting in my fridge for a month or two, but the last beer that I had from these guys was the Dingemörk, and that was, as I say, I think an 8 or 9% Imperial Stout, and I thought that was really nicely done. Kind of classic old school stout. So I have to say I'm very curious to see how they do on the lager side of things. As I've said in quite a few reviews previously, when it comes to a new brewery, one of the best things to do is to get a lighter ale, like an IPA or a pale ale or something like that, something from the dark heavy end of the spectrum like an Imperial Stout, and if you can, a lager beer. So we've got 2 of the 3 at the moment, so I guess I need to try an IPA of some description from these guys at some point soon. But yeah, really looking forward to trying this one. As you'll know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I've been getting into the lagers again over the last kind of 2 years or so, and yeah, always cool to try some beers from the new and very small Swedish breweries as well. You can find some real gems amongst the different breweries across the country. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brygglabbet before, and we will no doubt add another one to that in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers, sorry, that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is massively, massively appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Brygglabbet. So, as I've mentioned to you already, Brygglabbet are based in Sundsvall, and the company was founded back in 2018 by husband and wife team Axel and Emily Hedenström. So Axel has a background as an audiologist and Emily is a professional photographer, but Axel was the one who was interested in beer and just started homebrewing, and Emily gradually became more and more involved in the hobby. But he had homebrewed for about 4 years and learned from books and I think information on the internet as well, and just tasting different beers before they decided to take it a little bit more seriously. But at the moment, they're just doing very, very small brews of 200 to 400 litre batches, and they're hoping to expand this to 500 to 800 litre batches at some point very, very soon. But they hope they can open a tap room at some stage in the future as well, from what I understand. But the name Brygglabbet literally translates into English as the Brew Lab, and the idea is that they want to be recognised as an experimental brewery that just plays around with different styles and different flavours and things like this. And if you look at the different beers that they've done already, you can say that they are kind of sticking to that at the moment. So yeah, pretty cool. But as of July 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 15 different kinds of beer, and we've had one on the channel so far, as I say, the Dingemörk, which was an Imperial Stout, about 9% or something, that one. But yeah, let's leave it at that for the history section. That's all I can really tell you about these guys for the moment. I think it was Emily who gave me the information through Instagram on this brewery, if I remember correctly. So thank you once again to Emily for that. But yeah, that is it. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. Probably the best bet though is to follow them on the Facebook and the Instagram, and that will keep you up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and have a little look at this beer itself then. So just wipe it off because it's sweating here in the Swedish summer heat. But this is what a Pilsner is good for, of course. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is in the same sort of style that we've had from Brygglabbet before. There you can see on the side, there is their brewery symbol, which is quite nice, all the nice fancy tanks and stuff like this. And there you can see just a plain white bottle cap. So this beer is 330 millilitres. I think I paid about 25 Swedish krona for this, so that's about €2.50 for the bottle. Somewhere in the region of like £2.25, £2.20 sterling, something like that. And I guess for those of you watching over in the States, it would maybe be somewhere in the region of $3. But yeah, kind of standard price for a Pilsner lager here. But yeah, 5.7% ABV. So this one is a wee bit stronger than some of the Pilsners that you're going to come across, but nothing wrong with that. So remember, the Pilsner beer is a lager beer. That means it undergoes cold temperature fermentation, bottom fermenting yeast in other words. Usually they ferment between 8 to 12 degrees Celsius, if memory serves me correctly. And this style originates in the city of Pilsen in the Czech Republic, or Pilsner as it's known in German, hence the name of the beer. But yeah, created by a German brewer who wasn't a very nice man, and of course now that beer is known as Pilsner Urquell, or Plzeňský Prazdroj, as the Czechs call it. So yeah, a brewery that survived the communist era and everything, which is pretty cool actually. So yeah, lager beers, cold temperature fermentation. And the thing I like about trying Pilsner beers is that these are quite a technically demanding, it's quite a technically demanding style of beer. So if a brewery can do this well, it speaks volumes for them in my opinion. But yeah, this one, for a Pilsner beer, it's actually quite interesting in terms of colour. Before the head disappears though, I would say that this one poured with about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. There's a nice kind of foamy layer around the edge of the glass, and then, or foamy ring around the edge of the glass I could say, and there's a wee foamy layer just kind of sitting on top of that, but I think that's going to fade away to be a little bit lighter over the next wee while. But yeah, if we shine the light through this beer, it's actually, as you can see, a very rich amber colour. It looks a little bit more like a West Coast IPA or something like that. So remember, when it comes to the colour of your beer, it's determined by 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil. The type of malts that you use determine the magnitude of the colour of the beer, usually, but then the length of the wort boil, that caramelises your sugars more, and thus you'll usually get a darker coloured beer. And any barrel aging or adjuncts, of course, will play a role in that as well. But this is certainly one of the more ambery looking Pilsners that I've come across. Now, an amber lager is not unheard of. I mean, you've got the Vienna lagers from Austria, you've got the Märzen from Germany, and of course you've got the Letzak from the Czech Republic. But yeah, I think it looks very, very nice, this one. So yeah, this one probably has a little bit of caramel or something like that in it, or carapils, to give it this nice rich amber colour. But it is also 5.7%, which, as I say, is a little bit higher. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. One of the other differences to note about the Pilsner style, if you think about the main differences between the Czech Pilsen and the German Pilsner, the German Pilsner tends to be a little bit kind of drier and crisper in a sense, whereas the Czech one tends to be a little bit more kind of bready and yeasty to a degree. Czech beers are very well known for being a little bit more bready. But it certainly looks very, very nice, this one. I have to say I'm very curious about this. So a little bit surprised by the appearance of this. But yeah, I think we should take a closer look at the aroma and see how we go with this. Oh, it does smell quite nice actually. What I will say about it straight away is that you can smell it has got a little bit of a kind of stronger malty backbone to it. I mean, no doubt about that. Yeah, this one is definitely a little bit more malty than we've come across from some other Pilsners before. So I've got a feeling that if you're looking for a kind of authentic Pilsner, if you like, this maybe isn't going to be the one for you, but the question is going to be now whether it's a good beer or not. That's the main thing. When it comes to German styles, of course, and lager beers, I always look for authenticity. But you know, if the beer turns out nicely, then I think that's the main issue. That's the main thing. But yeah, what you'll notice with this beer straight away is that you can smell a little bit of that Pilsner malt crispness in this. And as I've explained in other videos, for me, Pilsner malt is a pain in the arse to describe, because it's more about the vibe that it gives the beer. Pilsner malt gives you this really nice, sharp crispness, and you can get a little bit of that out of this beer. But the backbone of the beer is a nice kind of smooth, bready element. It's a little bit like a kind of brown bready quality. You do get a bit of a straight up oily caramel in this one, and there are some nice kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity elements in this one. But yeah, it's actually very, very nice. So yeah, the malty backbone this one I really like. As you'll know if you've watched the channel, I love a little bit more of a kind of brown sugary malt character, the Scottish sweet tooth. But yeah, as I say, I get a bit of a straight up caramel in this one. You get a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing in there as well, and there is a bit of a kind of wholemeally brown bready bread crusty backbone to the beer too, which I can certainly appreciate. So I like what this beer is. I like what this beer is doing. I'll have to say that. So on the hoppy side of things, and I think we've covered the malty side of things as much as we can, but on the hoppy side of things, it is kind of what you'd expect. It's using one of the noble hops. It's a bit difficult to tell whether it's the more spicy Czech Žatec hops or whether it's one of the more kind of brighter Hallertauer Tettnangers. It could also be the smoother Slovenians as well, you know, like Dana or Styrian Goldings or something like this. But pardon me. Yeah, the hoppy aroma is kind of what you'd expect. There's a nice little bit of a smooth earthiness in there. You do get a nice little bit of a bright floral aromaticity. Not too spicy, as I say, just a nice kind of smooth floral aromaticity. And there's also a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy thing coming out of this beer as well. So I do like how that, I do like how this one goes about its business. So yeah, the grassy, citrusy side of things in this beer is very, very nice. So yeah, the hoppy character is what you'd expect. It's got a bit of that typical kind of noble hoppy type character to it. But on the fruity side of things, it gets a little bit interesting, because with this one, for me, there is a good little bit of a kind of oily, peary quality out of this one. That's for sure. You know, yeah, it has got a wee bit of that peary type ester to it. There's a wee bit of a kind of appley quality as well, and maybe some gooseberry, you know. You're getting little hints of this, but yeah, certainly a little bit of pear for me. Just a wee hint of a kind of slightly spicy apple, and a little touch of a more kind of peary, gooseberry type element to it. So some nice oily characters coming out of this. It has got a wee bit of a citrusy zesty note, as I said, when it comes to the grassy side of it. But yeah, I certainly have to say, so far, this is definitely one of the quirkier Pilsners that I've come across. It actually comes across more like a kind of Märzen, to be honest with you, in the aroma, although in fairness, the Märzen is a little bit more kind of crisp and biscuity than this. This strikes me as being a little bit more like a kind of Vienna lager in some ways, because it's got that little bit more breadiness to it, but you maybe could argue that it's like a Czech Letsak then, in that case, the Czech amber lager. So yeah, this is going to be interesting, that's for sure. But a standard Pilsner, not convinced by the aroma. But anyway, take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time that we try this one. So yeah, this is the Kattpils, a 5.7% Pilsner beer, although everything to me is pointing out this is more like a Märzen or a Vienna lager at the moment. But this one comes to you from Brygglabbet in Sundsvall, a little bit further north here in Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah. Now, what I'm going to say is it's not going to surprise you. It's not. It doesn't strike me as a Pilsner. That strikes me as more of a. It really does strike me as being more of like a. It's difficult to distinguish. It's got one or two of the little Märzen characteristics, but it's really got the more oily characteristic of the Vienna lager. It's a nice beer. It is a nicely done lager beer, this one, but to call it the Kattpils, I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I mean, it says it's a well hopped. It says on the side here, is there something better than a good lager? The cat knows it. So our well hopped modern lager has a full taste with light bitterness and clear aroma of citrus. From this, you get most cats the of Belottenhet. I'm not sure exactly what that is right enough, but yeah, when it's called Kattpils, as we say, Maybe it is. Maybe I'm mixing up something with the name, because it says, you know, it does say it's a modern lager on the side here. But if you call it Kattpils, you know, this is the thing. Most people would expect it to be a Pilsner, and I think actually in Systembolaget they had it down as a Pilsner as well. So this is something that they have to be a little bit careful with the marketing side of this, to be quite honest with you, because this really is more like, it's not a premium lager, definitely not. You know, sometimes when people talk about modern lagers, you can think like it's one of these premium lagers, but this is definitely not that. This one is more along the lines of, this is definitely more along the lines of like somewhere between a Vienna lager or a Märzen or a Czech Letzak. It's something like that. It's like an amber lager, this beer, absolutely. But as I say, not a Pilsner, but a nice beer. They just need to be careful with that name, I think. But anyway, we've said our piece on that. Let's focus on the beer. But what I'll say about it is actually really nicely done. So it gets a thumbs up from me on that. I had a very nice sort of Vienna lager actually from the Floral brewery, and the name of it's gone right out of my head, but I had a little crab on it, if I remember rightly. It was, oh, that's going to annoy me now, but yeah, I had a lovely Vienna lager from them, the Floral brewery, and this one actually reminds me quite a bit of that. So yeah, if they remarketed this as like a Vienna lager, I'd be very, you know, I would be like, yeah, absolutely, true to style. I think so. Because it's got a bit of the breadiness, it's got the oiliness, and yeah, I'd say that, yeah, instead of being a Märzen, it's not quite crisp and biscuity enough to be a Märzen. It's got the more oily and bready character of a Vienna lager, so that's what I'm going to go for with this one. I think this is a Vienna lager, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, let's break down the flavour of it then and just see how we go. Straight away then, across the middle of your palate, you've got a nice kind of smooth sort of brown bready character there. That forms the backbone of the beer in the middle third and the back third of your palate. So, you know, straight across in front of that, it goes together really nicely. At either end of that middle third of your palate, there's a nice little bit of a kind of bread crusty quality. So I really like how that goes together. Sitting on top of the that kind of bready layer, if you like, that's when you start to get the kind of brown sugary elements out of this beer. So in the very dead you've got a kind of oval there, and underneath that you do get a nice kind of lighter, oily, you know, McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. But if you go into the dead centre of your palate, you can feel that there's a little bit more of a kind of concentrated, straight up caramel in there, and that's where the kind of boozy aspects of this beer kind of come out. And you have to remember that this is 5.7% as well, so it's a good bit heavier than quite a number of the other lager beers that you will come across. I was going to, you know, in terms of Pilsners, definitely, but yeah, Vienna lagers I think tend to be around, the ones that I've been reviewing for you recently, they tend to be around the 5% mark. So this one is a wee bit on the heavier side of things, and I'm actually quite lucky at the moment because one of my viewers sent me a bunch of microbrewed Vienna lagers to have a look at, and I'm working my way through those. So yeah, this is definitely quite similar to some of those. But yeah, as I say, the brown sugar in this is nice. The backbone, that oval, as I say, kind of you get a little bit of that McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, but on top of that you get a sweeter caramel, and then in the very dead centre of your palate you get a more oily, concentrated caramelly note. So I do like how that comes out of this beer, but towards the kind of front half of that middle third of your palate, you can feel that there are one or two little woody elements just lying underneath this, just sitting underneath there, which I think is great. So yeah, that's the middle third of your palate, I would say. Onto the back third of your palate then, border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel a little bit of a sort of bready build up there. There's a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty kind of thing, which is great. And then the back, on that back third of your palate, you get a nice kind of smooth, you can feel that nice sort of smooth brown bready element there with a little bit of the bread crust. Then on top of that you get you know, you can feel the bread just thickens up a wee bit, and on top of all of that you get a little bit of the kind of yeasty the more airy, yeasty quality coming out of this beer, that sort of airy, brown bready sort of thing. So when you start at the back of the palate, you can feel that from the back of that the back of your tongue, you can feel the flavours a little bit taller, then it condenses down as you come further forward, then as you go into that middle third of your palate, the flavours are quite squashed and just condensed together. But I think it works really, really nicely, this one. So big thumbs up to Brygglabbet for the malt base in this. I think it goes together really nicely. And as I say, I think this really leans more towards being a Vienna lager, but it has got one or two of the biscuity aspects you would expect of the Märzen. And I don't find this one to be particularly I don't find it to be particularly kind of dry and crisp though, and that would be the characteristic of the Märzen. You know, it's kind of got the smoothness in a way, I guess you could say, of the Czech Leitzach as well, but I think the oiliness and the brown sugars really make it more of a Vienna lager. So stylistically, to me, that's what this one would be. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there, and it's quite a smooth earthiness. As you move further forward, you get a little bit of herbal quality out of the beer, and as you push towards the front corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of floral aromaticity coming out of it. So there is a nice kind of floral aromatic quality to this one. But then, yeah, around the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more... it is a little bit lighter and a wee bit more kind of grassy in a sense. There is a wee touch of a kind of citrusy, zesty quality to this one, but that works quite well. But let's focus on that front third of your palate then and the fruitiness that this beer has. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, there's a wee bit of a bready build-up in there and one or two bread crusty elements. The base of that front third of your palate is a nice, smooth, kind of brown bready, sort of wholemealy bread kind of thing. One or two bread crusty elements in there, of course, as well. But sitting on top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy, fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. Towards the back of that, front third of your palate, it is, you know, it's all about the kind of peary. I get a lot of kind of these sultana type notes out of it, you know, the dried white green grapes. You get a lot of that out of this beer, so a nice sultana and kind of oily peary quality to it. And as you move further forward onto the front half of that front third of your palate, you get a wee bit more of a kind of, you can feel a little bit of a gooseberry note lying underneath, and then there's just a wee bit of a kind of citrusy, zesty kind of thing coming off the sort of tip of the tongue as well, actually. So I really like how that goes together. In this one, I do like how it goes about its business. So yeah, the fruity side of this one is kind of nice and oily, and as I say, it really reminds me a little bit of a Vienna lager in a sense, and I like how that goes together for sure. But yeah, this beer, in terms of what it's doing just as a lager beer, it gets a thumbs up from me. As I kind of complained a little bit earlier, calling it the Kattpils can be a little bit deceiving, to be honest, because you would expect a Pilsner. As I say, I think Systembolaget had this listed as a Pilsner, but turns out it's more of a Vienna lager than anything else. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say that this beer is quite nice and how would you say? It's quite nice and I'd say it's at the bottom end of mid-bodied, top end of light-bodied. You know, it's one of the thicker and oilier lagers that I've come across in recent times. The carbonation is quite smooth. This beer, like I say, does have a nice kind of slickness to it, I guess we could say. So I like how it goes about its business in that sense. But then, yeah, you've also got some nice kind of hoppy characteristics in there as well. I would say that the bitterness is quite low on this one. I think it's a fairly standard 20 IBUs for, you know, that's quite common for a lot of these lager beers, about 20-25 IBUs. Yeah, I think this one's really no exception to that. But the malt is, like we say, nice and smooth, a little bit of graininess and woody undertones to it as well. Good bit of oily, you know, a good bit of a kind of oily caramelly note to this one as well, as we said, so good sweetness to the malt base too. Then you've got those nice oily and slightly dried fruity characters as well. So yeah, I really like how this one goes together. It's a solid sort of, I'd say it's a Vienna lager, but there are one or two little Märzen characteristics to it. But yeah, big thumbs up to Brygglabbet for this one. I think this is a solid enough lager, but the marketing, I think, is, I've complained about this in a few reviews, I think the marketing in this one as Kattpils is a little bit deceiving, so I don't know. That's maybe something they have to think about going forward. But yeah, I enjoyed this one, and cool to return to these guys after a little while as well. So let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brygglabbet. We will return to these guys at some point in the future. I've no doubt about that. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys in the next review. This one was the Kattpils 5.7% lager beer from Brygglabbet in Sundsvall, a bit further north in Sweden. Slange, skull, cheers, and see you guys in the next review.